Greetings and welcome everyone to this on-demand webinar. We're going to explore the Lexile and Quantile Hub with a focus today on the Quantile tools. I'm really thrilled that you're all able to join us today and give up some of your valuable time to help look at and explore these tools. And remember, this webinar is being brought to you by Metametrics, creator of the Lexile and Quantile frameworks, as well as your North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. And with that said, I do want to draw your attention to the special learning team here at Metametrics. It supports our state teams and does our state work. And you can see our pictures up there on the screen. My name is David Barnes. I focus primarily on the quantile measures. Matt Copeland is our Director of Educator Engagement, and he is there on the far left. Unfortunately, Jane Scott is traveling today and is unable to join us. She works a lot with our Lexile measures, as does Kate Treadway, who's on the call today as well. Works with our Lexile measures primarily. And Kate and Matt will be manning the chat and question sections and answering any questions you have, and if need be, bringing those up to the whole group so we can discuss them as we go along. But you can also see our emails there. Please feel free to get a hold of us. Anytime you've got a question about Lexiles, Quantiles, the Hub, any of the tools, any of those things, please don't hesitate to email us, drop us a line, and talk to us and ask us those questions. We're here to help you to get the most out of the measures that you receive. So our session today is going to begin with just a quick overview of the quantile framework for mathematics and the two kinds of quantile measures that are available. Then we're going to get right into the hub itself, our one-stop shop for all of the various quantile tools. We're going to examine a whole host of support resources that are available to you, including quick start guides and video tutorials. And finally, we're going to explore those actual individual tools inside the hub that you can utilize in your classroom and at home to help your teachers and help students. So we're going to dig right in with a quick refresher of the quantile measures themselves. The quantile framework for mathematics measures both the complexity of math skills and concepts that are presented in a variety of different materials. These things might include textbooks, activities, games, worksheets, videos, and many other types of resources. But they also measure a student's mathematical ability and understanding of those same math skills and concepts. Again, two different measures that are put on the very same scale. And of course, the power of the quantile framework really resides in pairing these quantile student measures with the quantile material measures. If we were to imagine that a student has a quantile measure that is equal to the quantile measure of a lesson that he or she is about to learn, let's say we've got an 840 Q student paired with an 840 Q lesson, we would say that student had that relationship, is a perfect match. However, it's also important to understand that perfect match means something a little bit different with the quantile framework, especially for those that have worked with the Lexiles. The match in the quantile framework suggests the student has the foundational knowledge and the conceptual understanding to be ready for instruction in that content, and assumes that a highly effective mathematics teacher is present to provide that learning and to guide it. This is a little different than the Lexile measure for any of you who are used to it, which is really targeted at independent reading. But the quantile measure, I just want to reinforce, is about readiness for instruction guided by a highly effective mathematics teacher. So you might be wondering, just where do I get these quantile measures? And for many of you, there are likely multiple ways you can access the quantile measures. First of all, your state of summative assessments in North Carolina have been linked with the framework, and the end of the year tests report quantile measures in addition to the scale scores. Additionally, however, there are many local schools and districts that may be using an interim benchmark assessment or instructional program that's also reporting these measures. So in this way, you may actually be receiving multiple quantile measures even within the same school year, tracking student performance on the same scale, but across many different types of assessment. Just a reminder that North Carolina and the North Carolina Department of Education, in partnership with Metametrics, reports quantile measures and Lexile measures in all of the end of grade tests from 3 through 8 and end of course tests at the high school level for English 2 and ACT. This is a sample of a score report. It's actually a Lexile score report, but they look very much the same. And you can see down at the bottom right hand of the sample individual student report is the Lexile measure in this case. And you would see the exact same thing on a mathematics assessment, only it would be the quantile measure that's reported alongside all of the raw data, all of the scaled data for that test for, excuse me, for the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction. So to summarize a little bit of what we just covered very briefly, you can see that there are three ways the quantile framework can be utilized. First of all, we can use these ideas to target, excuse me, our instruction to our students' ability levels. Any group of students has a wide range of mathematical ability. And by targeting instruction and targeting the materials directly to each student's unique ability level, we can optimize that learning that's occurring across all of our students. We often do this not by replacing the core curriculum, but by being able to identify needs and abilities to scaffold information to help students to prepare for instruction, as well as provide enrichment for those students who may already know the content that's the core of instruction for that day, or that week, or that unit. Second, you can also see that we have the ability to promote growth and monitor our student progress across time. Because the framework has been linked with a variety of different assessments and a variety of different instructional programs, the scales walk across all of the child's entire K-12 learning experience. And finally, that leads directly into being able to communicate student achievement more efficiently to a variety of different stakeholders without having to change scales or systems. With each new test, we can simply use our quantile measures to discuss those student performances. So now we're going to get into the star of today's show, the Lexile and Quantile Hub, focusing on the quantile tools. Accessing the hub can be done by visiting hub.lexile.com. You can see the URL on your screen, and I believe it's probably being put in the chat for you by either Matt or Kate. The hub is compatible with desktop and laptop computers, and also most tablets. You can even use it some features on a phone, but on a smartphone, but they don't work as well as they do on a tablet or computer. We recommend Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, or Firefox as your browser. If you haven't already done so, you can create an account by clicking on the register button near the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Once you click on that register button, you're going to get to a screen that looks like this. The only information you really need to put in is your email address and password and the country, state that you're located in. Educators, please select that you are an educator. The other thing we strongly encourage you to do is when you're using an email address, use your school-based email address. It helps avoid confusion and helps make sure that you get that full premium access for educators in North Carolina that comes with the state partnership. So once you've registered and you've logged in, you'll know that you're a registered user and that you're logged in correctly when you can see your state logo near the upper left-hand corner of the hub's main page. You can see the one I've got highlighted or boxed around in red here shows Kansas. I live in Topeka, Kansas. And so when I logged in on this particular event, it shows my Kansas. I know I'm logged in properly. You'll see North Carolina up there, and you'll see an outline of your state. And actually, when we get into the live hub tour in a little bit, I've changed my account to be a North Carolina account, so you'll actually see the North Carolina logo there. So also included within the hub are some support resources that are going to be helpful to you, especially if you're not sure exactly how to use a tool. You can access the resources by selecting support, which is near the bottom of the left-hand navigation bar. You can see it circled in red on the screen right now. Down there at the very bottom on the left-hand side in that dark blue border, it says support. Within our support community, you can find a number of resources that can not only assist you in using the various tools within the hub, but it can also provide additional information about the measures and the frameworks as well. Our community also includes a vast collection of frequently asked questions that are there for easy reference for you to look at. The hub includes some quick start guides. Each of them are for each of the individual tools, and these you can find on that resource list as well. And I believe there's links being put in there for the quick start guides. So now that we've covered getting into the hub and finding additional help, we're also going to explore some individual tools within the hub. I believe it's being shared in the chat as well. This individual getting started chart is a great resource for new users. The chart lists each tool in the hub, its direct URL, a description, the intended audience, and links to the quick start guide and video tutorial and Metametrics contact for questions. So please keep this quick start guide handy as you work with the tools. So with that said, you can see I'm showing a picture of the main hub screen again up here on the share, and I am going to hopefully replace that with an actual live hub. And can someone let me know, are we seeing the live hub with the North Carolina logo on the upper left?
You are. Looks good, Dave.
Thank you very much. All right, now that we're in the actual live hub, we're going to look at some of those mathematics tools that are there on the hub to help us with the quantile measure. Now, the first thing I will point out, and since this is a math presentation and Matt is muted since he's our leader, I can say this. It always frustrates me as the quantile person. The Lexile measure tools are always at the top of the screen. So for those of us math teachers, where you just have to remember, we go to the Lexile and Quantile hub, we're going to scroll to the bottom. Now, I will point out, I don't want to spend a long time on it because I want to spend more time on the tools themselves. You do have some ability to personalize this navigation bar on the left-hand side, this dark blue area. By selecting these stars on the tiles on the main screen, you'll notice all these green Lexile tiles, only 3 of them have gold stars. The others have the grayed out stars. By clicking the star, it turns it gray or gold, and any of them that are gold show up in my navigation bar. And so the reason this is helpful for me as a math person, especially with all the math tools being at the bottom half of the hub page, I only have about 3 of the Lexile tools that are selected here. I've only clicked on 3 of them with the gold stars. They're the ones I use most often, but I have all of the quantile tools, so I can get to them very quickly in that navigation bar on the left-hand side of my screen if I want to use it, or I can scroll down and go to the bottom. Keeping in mind, I can always come back to this main screen by clicking up here on this lighter blue at the very top of the screen, and it brings me back to the main page, and then I can go to see the big tiles. So it's just some quick navigation in here. Again, as a quantile user, it's probably helpful to make sure you at least have all the quantile tools over here on your left-hand navigation bar. Now, we're not going to have time today to look at every single tool in the Lexile Quantile Hub for quantiles, but I do want to look at some of the most important, and I want to start with, along those lines, the Math Skills Database. And I do start with this one primarily because it is, if you will, the core of the hub tools for quantiles. The Math Skills Database is what many of the other tools in the Lexile and Quantile Hub are based around. So if we understand how the Math Skills Database works, we can better understand how to use some of the other quantile tools. It's a fairly straightforward tool. You can see it's only got a few drop downs here, 3 of them to be exact, and some of them are pretty straightforward. You want to select your state, and we're in North Carolina. So scroll down here. And here we go with North Carolina. And then you want to select a grade. And because we're dealing with secondary here, and because high school goes by course, I wanted to do a generic grade. So I went with grade 8. It's kind of there in the middle high school range, right before high school, right at the end of middle school. And I want to look at grade 8, just to kind of show some of the features of the Math Skills Database and how it works. So you might have also noticed, and I forgot to mention it a minute ago, where I selected grade 8 is right here, but what this next one is, says goals. And what that really means for most states is standard, but the title they use here is goals. So when I click on this drop down for goals, remember thinking of that as standards, I actually see a listing of all of the 8th grade standards in North Carolina mathematics. They're all listed here. And I can select any one of those, but the first thing I want to look at here on Math Skills Database is this very first thing in the drop down that says all goals selected. Because there's some interesting things I can do if I select all of the goals for a grade or in case of high school, for a particular class. So here I am, I'm selecting all goals. And as you can see, I've got a listing of all of the 8th grade mathematics content from your North Carolina standards. The default sort is to sort them by the skills, or excuse me, by the state goal or the standard designator. You can also sort by any of the other columns. You get QSC ID, you get the QSC description, you've got the quantile measure, and you've got the strand. I will tell you, some of these are probably better to sort by than others. For example, oftentimes I know I've done my lesson planning from the state standards. That's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm looking through. So that's what I often do, is sort it by state standards so I can find the content that I'm looking for. You might notice that in some cases, for example, this very first entry, this standard NC8 EE2 shows up multiple times. And all that means is the quantile skills and concepts were not written to be North Carolina's listing of content or my own state, Kansas's listing of content. They are a generic listing of mathematics content from K through 12. And so each state is linked to those content listings. And so sometimes a single state standard goes to more than one QSC, and vice versa. A single QSC might point back to more than one state standard simply because of slightly different ways of wording that content. In this case, again, you see this state standard pointing to several QSCs. Oftentimes, the link is a little stronger to one QSC than another when you see multiples listed. You can also sort by the QSC ID, but I caution you, for most people, unless you know a certain skill or concept, and you know I want to look at this QSC for some reason, sorting by QSC ID is often not helpful because these are not the quantile measures. These are not how difficult it is. These are simply a database designator. They're just a random number assigned based to designate things in the database so we can sort one from another. Similarly with the QSC description, since it's not based on any particular state's wording in their standards, unless you know exactly how a QSC is worded, I find that this particular field is often one that I don't sort by for that reason, because I might mess the wording up a little bit or not quite have it exactly the way the QSC reads, and then it's hard for me to sort. But then we get over to these last two columns, and I'll go to the last one first, sorting by strand. This is kind of like the cluster in the standards in a lot of our standards documents. That is oftentimes a very helpful way to sort things because I can group things by broad content. But this next to the last one, the quantile measures. If I click on this, I can see all of the content for whatever grade I'm looking at, in this case, grade 8, from either simplest, lowest quantile measure to the highest, or from the most difficult, highest quantile measure to the lowest. This gives me a nice 80,000-foot view of the content for any particular grade or course. And I can sort down through it. For example, I've got highest to lowest here. So I see I have at least one QSC in the 1250 Q range. Now, is that likely a focus for 8th grade? Probably not. This is probably a concept that gets touched on, and maybe a little piece of it gets taught at 8th grade. So it is in there, but it's not a focus of 8th grade content because most of our 8th graders are not going to be at that 1250 Q and ready for instruction on that content. And you can see there aren't a lot of those 1200. There's only one 1200. There's not a lot of 1100s, but there's a lot of 1000s, a lot of 900s. That's kind of that core for that 8th grade instruction. That 900 and 1000 is where the bulk of your 8th grade instruction is going to happen, is in those quantile measures. Similarly, if I look down at the bottom, and I'll go back up here and just resort it, if I look at my lowest quantile measures, I have a few quantile skills and concepts here that are in the 700 Q range. These are probably skills that are touched on briefly as review or overlap with other grade levels a little bit, but they're not going to probably be that core of instruction at the 8th grade, but they are included there. They are part of those 8th grade standards. Again, this gives me a very quick 1,000 or 80,000-foot view of exactly what the content is, easiest to hardest or hardest to easiest, very quickly being able to sort through and look at the big picture content for 8th grade mathematics in this case. Now, I do want to mention, and it probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, this is not going to help me plan next week's lesson. This 80,000-foot view doesn't help me understand what I need to help my students with Monday's class, with Monday's content. But it often can help me when I'm doing the bigger picture planning for the curriculum for the year. What are the things that are going to probably be fairly easy that we can go through pretty quickly? What are the things that are going to require some more scaffolding and some more support for more of my students? And I can look at that quickly by doing this very big picture of an entire course or entire grade. So now, staying here on the Math Skills database, we're going to go up, and instead of doing all goals selected, I'm going to select a single goal. And I kind of did some scouting in advance. I want to do NC8 EE1. It's one that's here near the top of the list, makes it quick and easy to find. It's also one that's got some good information or some stuff that'll show up very nicely. So once I select a particular standard or goal, as it's labeled, and I click on it and click search, now you notice I get a very different list. I don't have that long list of stuff that's all of the 8th grade content. I just have the QSC, or in some cases, QSCs, if there's more than one, that are associated with this particular standard. This is something now that as a classroom teacher, if I'm teaching this 8th grade class, and I need to work on applying properties of integer exponents, I can do that right from here. I can look at this content and look for ways to help students with this content if this is the focus of my lesson tomorrow or next week or in the coming weeks. This is something I can focus on very closely. Now, not a lot of help here. It just says, okay, this is another way to say this content. Instead of integer exponents, it talks about use rules of exponents to simplify numerical and algebraic expressions. The QSC is a little broader than the standard, but we can tell it's related. But when I click on this QSC, now I get into the knowledge cluster page. And this is where the meat of this is, the real helpful pieces of the Math Skills database can be found. Because here in the knowledge cluster, you'll see that original QSC at the top, talking about exponents in expressions. You can see that it's at a 1000 Q. So I know students that are 50 above or below that are probably right in that sweet spot. They are ready for instruction on this. They're ready for core instruction. But if I've got a kid who's at about an 850 Q, that kid might need some scaffolding to help them get ready for this instruction. Not to replace it. We all know they have to be taught the grade level content, but maybe that student needs some scaffolding to help them be more successful with that. Some pre-preparation or something to help them as we go along. Maybe I've got a kid that's at a 1300 Q that's sitting in my 8th grade class. Maybe they're going to need some materials to help extend their lessons, help them take this a little deeper. And so ways that I can find that. First, we'll focus primarily on the core instruction. Then we'll talk about how you can find stuff to scaffold and extend as well. So looking for core instruction, I can see this knowledge cluster. I can see that we have the prerequisite skills are listed here. There's 3 of them listed. These are the skills and concepts that student needs to be able to know and do in order to be successful with the focus content. We have the impending skills and concepts. These are the things that they're going to need to study in the future, that they're going to need to know today's focus in order to be prepared for. And we have this related or supporting QSCs, these supporting skills here in the middle. That's kind of that related stuff. It's not prerequisite, it's not impending, but it's got some similar content, some related topics. One of the things that's really easy to overlook on this page is this right here in the middle where it says resources. And even more easy to overlook is that finding those resources is kind of difficult. You notice I click on the word, it doesn't do anything. I have to go over here to the right where it says show, and it'll give a number, in this case 19, resources. And I click on that, and this box opens up. And now I have got a list of resources that are linked to this Quantile skill and concept. Keeping in mind that oftentimes the resources cover more than one topic. Oftentimes some of these resources are project-based. They can cover multiple standards and multiple QSCs. So we do want to look at these resources. They're all freely available. They're not owned by Metametrics. They're just cataloged here and linked to the QSCs, which is linked to the standards. So we can find those resources that are appropriate for core instruction. I can look here. Some of these resources are probably going to be easier. Some of them more difficult. So not only can I supplement core instruction, I can also use some of this to scaffold or provide extensions right here from the knowledge cluster for our focus content. I can look at these resources. Again, if you click on any of these, you can see several of these are videos. At the top, I can click on these. It'll bring it up, hopefully in a second. I can play that video. I can look at it. I can decide whether I like it or not. And if I do, I can go back to the list, and I'll talk about more in a minute what we can do with that. But I also want to mention, looking now, we know how to find the resources. Okay, let's say all these resources are great, but I'm planning my lesson for Monday, and I've got a kid that I know I've got to get them core instruction, but I need to scaffold with some content that's below core. I need to scaffold with some information, help them get ready for this content Well, some of the resources, maybe these resources are a little high to do that scaffolding. So I look back up here at my knowledge cluster and I look and I say, all right, I've got these prerequisite skills. Maybe I want to look at writing equivalent fractions, or maybe I know they have issues with using exponential notation and repeating multiplication. And so I click on one of those prerequisite skills. And you notice it takes me to a new knowledge cluster. And this is now based on that prerequisite skill. In this case, I chose using exponent notation and repeated multiplication. And again, I have a resource list here. Since I had it open on the other page, it's automatically open here. I can look for resources on that prerequisite skill and find a resource that helps the students sitting in my class so that they can get that assistance they need to be ready for that core instruction. As we look at these resources, I mentioned that you can preview them, you can look at them, you can talk about, does this look like one I want to use? Does this look like one I don't want to use? Once you've identified resources that you want to use, one of the greatest tools to a premium account on the Hub and to being logged in on the Hub is being able to select these resources and organize them and use them. And again, it's a feature that's easy to overlook for a couple of reasons. First of all, these little check boxes are over here at the far right. So if I wanted to use some of these resources, I toggle this plus sign and a check mark meaning that they are resources that I have marked for use or marked that I wanted to follow up on. The other feature that can be overlooked, anytime you're in any one of these math skills database pages, any of these knowledge cluster pages, up here in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a link that says Resource Center. You won't find the Resource Center as one of the tiles on the main Hub page. You only find it when you're in Math Skills Database, but the Resource Center is probably one of the most useful tools for lesson planning that is available on the Hub to support mathematics through the Quantile. When I click on the resources here, I now see you can see I've done a lot, all of the different resources that I have selected with the check mark in the Math Skills Database, in that knowledge cluster. I can sort them. This one has all QSCs. The drop down here will let me select which QSC I wanted to work with if I knew what that was. I can also sort them by how recent they are. Once I've done all of this, I can do what's called creating a list. You see that over here. I can create a new list. When I create a new list, I give it any name I want. You can create as many lists as you want. A resource can appear on more than one list. And where we go with this is you can use this to help organize your resources into things that you could use for a lesson. So for example, I could create a list for every unit that I'm going to cover. I could create a list for every lesson within a unit. I could even create a list for different levels of students within each lesson. And so I might have a list of core reinforcement materials for a particular topic. I might have another list of resources that is scaffolding for a particular topic. And I might have another list that is extensions for that exact same topic, all three. And I send all of my students an email and they all get a list of materials to look at and work on. They don't know which one, they don't tell them which one that is. They just know they got resources to work on. And each kid gets the resources that they need to either scaffold, provide additional practice, or some enrichment, whatever is appropriate to them. And I can use these lists because once I create a list, they each have their own unique URL that I can share in an email, and it just takes them to a link. The link just takes them to a list of here are the resources that have been shared with you. I can also send that link to parents, use it to send home and say, hey, here's some resources for your kid to look at for next week. They don't know whether their kid is reviewing previous content, whether they're practicing stuff that was just learned, or whether they're doing some extensions to help take them a little farther because they're a little ahead of the class. All they know is they got resources to work through to help support their personal math instruction. I will say, as a teacher, I encourage you, think about this early on in terms of your naming scheme, to name these in a way that you'll be able to find it later. As you can see, if you just have all of the resources here, it's really hard to remember which one of these came with which one without going in and just selecting one by one each QSC. Similarly, if the list just say list 1, list 2, list 3, I come back to the next year, it'll be hard for me to remember which one of these was working with solving quadratics using completing the square, and which one of these was working with Pythagorean theorem. And so I might want to label them in some way, lesson names or something like that, that helps me know where I use this. not because I don't ever want to change it, but at least I can find what I used the year before. I can go in quickly, I can make adjustments, and I can change things as needed. You notice the hub was trying to tell me that I've been on here too long and it didn't make me time out. Hopefully we're all right. So that's very quickly the resource center within the Quantile Math Skills Database tool. Remember, to get there, inside the Math Skills Database, you will find that resource center link in the upper right-hand corner. So with all of that said, I do want to go back to the main hub page and look at another tool. And some of you might get a little upset with me in a minute that I didn't start with this tool. So we looked at Math Skills Database. And as I told you, we started with Math Skills Database because it's kind of that core, it's kind of that heart of the Quantile tools in the hub. But as a teacher, I would probably use Teacher Assistant more often than Math Skills Database. And I think you'll see why in just a minute. So I clicked here on Teacher Assistant. You can tell I clicked on it because it says Teacher Assistant at the top. But you might notice this page looks an awful lot like the one I just used for Math Skills Database. And it works the same way too, mostly. I click here, I go down, I want to select my state, North Carolina. I'm going to select my grade. I'm going to go exactly the same one I did before. I'm going to go 8th grade again, grade or course. And I've got this drop down for the goals, which we said is the standards, same as it was in Math Skills Database. Here's one difference already. You might notice I don't have all goals here. So when I go to Quantile Teacher Assistant, I can't do that 80,000-foot view of all of the goals for a particular grade or course. I just have to pick individuals. But those are still there. So I'm going to go to the same 8EE1 that we looked at a minute ago with Math Skills Database. Only now we're looking at Teacher Assistant. So I've done North Carolina, grade 8, same standard, just like I did in Math Skills Database a few minutes ago. And now I click on Search. Takes it a second, but once this pops up, you'll notice this is different than what we saw when we were in Math Skills Database. When I was in Math Skills Database, it just gave me a list that said, here's the QSC down at the bottom. Here's the link QSC. Well, now I've got these yellow and green and blue, and I've got a slider bar here in the middle, and I've got a color code here that tells me what these are. And this tells me the things in yellow are probably below my students' quantile level measure, my students' target quantile range. These things in green are probably right in that sweet spot for that student. They're in the target quantile range. And the things in blue are above the quantile range, probably things that the student is not quite ready to learn yet. So I can quickly see, looking at this based on the default settings, that these prerequisite skills should be things the student already knows. They're lower than their quantile measure. Our target content here, this QSE in the middle, this focus QSE, is right there in that sweet spot, right there in green. This should be perfect for instruction for 8th grade students. Similarly, some of these supporting QSEs, one of them is yellow and 2 of them are green. Most of the impending or future concepts and skills show up as blue. A couple do show up as green, but for the most part, this looks like it's just perfect for my 8th grade student. But some of you might be asking, what student? Where's the data? Is this my class? Is this Johnny? Is this Susie? Who is this? And the answer to that is this defaults to nationally normed data for 8th grade students. All 8th grade students that have ever taken a test linked to quantile measures, this is what this is based on, and it's nationally normed. This isn't your class. This isn't even your school or your district, and it's certainly not subgroups of your class. But this slider is here for a purpose, and it's a very small item on the page, but this slider can be adjusted as wide or as narrow as you want, wherever you want. So maybe I've got a class of students that are doing really well, and my students are really up here, and I can change my slider, and they're pretty narrow. So if they're all up here, notice what happened. This color scheme changed on my QSCs in the bottom. And now I can see my focus QSCs in yellow. If my students are in this little narrow band and it's a little higher than what was projected, my students probably already know this content. Doesn't mean I don't want to cover it quickly. Doesn't mean I don't want to review it. Doesn't mean I don't want to verify that they know it. But this is probably something that my students are going to be pretty comfortable with. By contrast, if my students are in a narrower band down on this end, and this is what my class looks like, or maybe it's a subgroup of my class that I'm looking at, now I go, my core, my focus here is in blue. This says those students are probably not quite ready for it. Does that mean I just skip it? No, we know we can't do that. That means I need to look back here at these prerequisites and what can I do to help scaffold the information and help get that student ready for the core. And in some cases, maybe even scaffold some of the prerequisites and click on them to go farther back to see what I can do. So I can adjust this slider again as wide or as narrow as I want. I've been setting it fairly wide, but you can set it really, really narrow here and set it to be a very small group of students, maybe an individual student even, or maybe a group of 3 or 5 that you know are working together and working at roughly the same level. And you can use their actual scores to see, all right, where can I expect my students to be? Again, is it going to be perfect? Every student we know sometimes does better on some content than their scores would indicate, or not as well as their scores would indicate. We always have that. We always have to adjust, but it gives us a lot better starting point to understand what our students might be needing, what they might be ready to do. And we click on those and we do the sliders to adjust this. And that's probably why I would start with this. As a teacher, I would probably start with this teacher assistant because I can get a really good, very quick visual where my students, based on their own scores that I have in front of me from their state assessment or other measure that we've done, that I can punch in here and do the slide. You get lost in this for hours playing around. But I will point out, here's why I started with Math Skills Database, even though Teacher Assistant is much more colorful and does much more to target particular students with the slider. Once I've set my sliders that, all right, I know what I need to be looking for, whether that's focus or maybe one of these prerequisites to help do some scaffolding. Once I click on that QSC, this page should look very familiar to you. It even says Math Skills Database on it again. We're right back in the database. We're right back in here looking at the knowledge cluster. It's the exact same knowledge cluster we were looking at a few minutes ago, the exact same prerequisites, supporting and impending skills, the exact same 19 resources that we looked at a minute ago. They're all right here. I go right back in the Math Skills Database. So the teacher assistant gives us another view, another way to look at and find that content and to be able to identify what content's appropriate for my student and be able to find what particular groups or individual students might need. But then once I do that and I know what the topics are, I'm going to be looking at this Math Skills Database and this knowledge cluster to identify resources and even content. Because maybe there's not a resource here that I really, really like, but I look at some of these prerequisite skills and some of the descriptions and I go, you know what? I've got a game based on that particular prerequisite skill and I know it can help this student. And I've used it before. It's not in my list here, but I've used this, so I can use this knowledge cluster to help me identify topics that I might have other resources. And so that's a quick, probably the most useful tool for teachers. I want to look at one more tool, I believe, and then I'm going to go back to and open up some questions. And the last tool I want to look at, we're spending a little bit of time on, last couple probably, is, now that I think about it, grade level charts. A lot of times you want to know, all right, what's a normal 8th grader look like? What's a normal high school look like? I do want to caution a little bit on the grade level charts. They're a good way to know where nationally normed students have been historically. They don't tell what's happened. I know that although we're pretty much mostly face-to-face nationwide, it doesn't tell the impact that's happened because of us having to do remote schooling for so many of our students for so long in the last couple of years. The other thing you want to watch here is there's a lot of things you can select on a grade level chart. For example, the default here is to go end of year, but you can actually select end of year, beginning of year, and middle of the year, and you can do all three if you want. And you can see a range of scores for students. I'm going to go back to just end of the year just to keep it simple, but I wanted to make sure you knew that they're all there. The default is also to show K-12. So to keep on a theme, if we were to look at the 8th grade that we've been looking at all afternoon, I'd go here to grade 8, and now I'm just looking at grade 8, end of year. Once I select a grade, I can add additional grades by selecting them, and notice I just have the ones that are selected. If you check all of them, then all of the grades show back up again. But I'll look just at grade 8 for a minute because that's kind of what I've been looking at. So you might do this very quickly, and especially if you get in a hurry, and say, all right, so I would expect most 8th graders to be between 985 and 1235 Q on the quantile scale. Well, maybe. This is just the beginning of October. This is an end of the year. Would I expect all of my 8th graders to be in this range, the end of the year range in October? Probably not. So maybe I want to look at, back to what we're talking about again, the middle or the beginning of the year. Well, okay, now we see it's a little lower at the beginning of the year. And now we're getting close to the middle of the year. So maybe we're more 965 to 1215. Okay, that's all right. But what if you look a little closer? This is not the average student. This is 50th to 90th percentile. This is the top half of nationally normed data. So this other thing, you can do the slider here, you can adjust. So maybe I want to look 25 to 75, kind of that middle, the middle group, 25th to 75th percentile. So now I see, oh, okay, beginning of the year, that's more like 825 to 1070Q. That's nationally normed beginning of the year. I might need to adjust a little bit my expectations for my 8th grade class this year if I feel like they've lost a little bit of learning over the last couple of years. So I can get an idea of where they maybe should be, or not, I don't want to use should, where they maybe are based on historical data. I find this most helpful if for some reason I have a student, maybe they transferred in that I don't have a score on, but I know they've been a strong math student. I can see that in their grades, or has struggled in math. I can get an idea, if they're a strong math student, they're probably above these national norms. If they've struggled in math, they're probably down toward the lower end of these national norms. And it gives me an idea where a student might be if for some reason I don't have a score on them. And Beth, how much time do we want to allow for questions?
So we've got 16 minutes. I need 2 minutes at the end.
Okay.
So you've got some time if you'd like to spend on that.
I want to show a couple more tools real quick if we've got some time. I want to look at just a grade level chart, career database. I want to look at Growth Planner real quick. Growth Planner allows us to enter scores. It's going to work. We can add scores for students. So if I know a student, for example, I'm just going to do a single score, but you can add multiple scores. The more you have, the more years you have. So let's say we've got that 8th grade student, or we've got that 8th grade student, and they, as a 5th grader last year, scored an 850. They took that test in, let's say, April. They were in grade 7. They took it April 22. The school year started. That school year started in August of last year. So I'm going to put this in here. I want to click all of these things so I can see all the measures. And I can look at Growth Planner. You have to do this for each student. There's no way to upload a bunch of students at once. And really that's to protect student privacy. We go in one by one and we load students. And you can see, so this blue range is that college and career readiness. This light blue line in the middle of it, that's where we'd like to see a student go from here to there. You can see they're right in the middle of blue. This black dotted line would be, this is where you'd expect that student to go if there were no targeted interventions, and by that, and no targeted instruction to help make sure they grow. If they just left it to their own devices, you'd expect them to grow a little bit to get here. Very easy to hit the light blue line. The orange band is where we're looking at for 4-year college typically. The yellow is typically 2-year or community college, and the blue is typically over here is typically straight to the workforce. So we can see without any help at all, this student's the lower end of 4-year college preparation, upper end, we're right in the middle of community college preparation, well prepared to go straight into the workforce, and with just a little bit of help and pushing a little here and there, should be very easily able to hit that preparation for 4-year university. We never want to use this to say a kid can or can't do something. This is never used to say this child is not going to be ready for 4 years for 4-year university, but it can be used to say this child needs to work at this. This child is currently below the target we'd like to see them at to be ready when they graduate to hit a particular career or to hit a particular post-secondary outcome. We can also tie this chart by looking at what's called the career database. It's a separate tool, but you can also get to it straight from here, where we can go in and let's say we've got a young lady sitting in class that wants to do what her mama does. So she wants to go into, what's the one we all, architecture and construction, and wants to be a civil engineer. So I can click on this and I will replace this graph over at the right that was generic with some actual numbers on civil engineering. And I can see the quantile range that would be typical for entry level, for a student who graduating high school to be ready to do training and enter into civil engineering. And you can see for a civil engineer, that's somewhere the 75th percentile would be 1385Q and the 50th percentile would be 1120Q. And so we know that student to be very well prepared to go into that four-year university and take training to be a civil engineer ought to try to target being somewhere in that range on the quantile scale by the end of their high school career. And they can also then use this to look at information within the career database about those careers. If I click here, I go, I see the civil engineer, I see more detail about it. I see some of the job prospect information that student can look at. I see what the average or the median salary is. I can even go in and look at either by selecting, or if I can zoom in well enough, by clicking on North Carolina, I can look at state-specific information about that career. And these are all tied to the federal career clusters, and students can go through and look at these as well to be able to compare where they're at to where they want to go toward possible careers. You can keep changing the careers up, checking and doing other things. So with that said, I'll go right back here real quick, a couple slides, and be thinking of questions you might have and put them in the chat or being ready to ask them. I do want to point out before I finish the slide presentation, we have at Metametrics office hours every Monday and every Friday, Monday in the afternoon, Friday in the morning, from 3 to 5 Eastern on Monday, from 11 to 1 Eastern on Fridays, what are called office hours. You can see the links there, and I believe they're also being put in the chat. Please drop in and join us anytime you want on any of those office hours. If you've got a question, you need to ask one. In addition to being able to email us, just drop into the office hours, ask us those questions, talk to us, stop by and say hi. Sometimes there's people there from other states. We get a nice conversation going on. I will admit, and Matt and Kate, especially if Matt wanted to unmute, Matt has occasionally put me into another room, a breakout room during office hours, because Matt gets tired of me talking math, and I can do that for the whole 2 hours if you'd like. I'd love to do it. So please join us there and be glad to talk to you. And with that said, here's the basic contact information for Metametrics itself. And Beth, I'm going to turn it back over to you and let you finish out, and actually turn it over to ask Matt and Kate first if you have any questions or anything we need to address out loud from the chat.
We are all good over here, Dave.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, I had a handful of questions, but I was able to respond directly to those folks. And I don't think I have anything outstanding. Those were more questions, more related to like North Carolina than Metametrics. I'm gonna start to close us out and give folks a minute more to pop anything in the chat that they'd like to get answered while we're live on the call today. Thank you, Dave. The Hub really is a one-stop shop resource that is free because of our partnership with Metametrics. We hope that our teachers have found value and have enjoyed exploring the Hub. We appreciate everyone for joining us today. There will be a link to this recording that will be sent out either late today or early tomorrow, depending on how long it takes the system to process the recording. And that will come from NC Public Schools. That link or that email will have a link to the recording as well as all of the links that have been shared in the chat today. You are able to share that with whomever you'd like. And then probably in about a month, we'll get all this posted to our website. I'm seeing a few more questions pop in. Kate, I think you got them. All right, and with that, I'm going to sign us off today. Thank you for your time. Thank you to our partners at Metametrics, and have a great night.
Thank you all.